Welcome to the deep dive. It's often the twists and turns in someone's life that really end up shaping their greatest achievements.
Mm-hmm.
Take Robert Boyle. Here's something that, well, it really caught my attention. He was born into, incredible luxury, son of the Earl of Cork, right?
Immense wealth.
But he actually faced pretty significant personal hardship, really fragile health from a young age, and even lost his mother early on.
Right.
And it's sort of surprising, isn't it, how this early adversity might have actually lit the spark for his incredible scientific journey.
It's fascinating how those early experiences sometimes they can forge a unique kind of resilience, and a really powerful drive to understand the world.
Yeah.
For Boyle, facing that vulnerability so early, well, it seems to have ignited this profound curiosity, almost a fundamental need, maybe, to figure out how things worked, especially when life felt so uncertain.
Absolutely. So Robert Boyle, he wasn't just, some name in a history book. He was a pivotal force in the scientific revolution.
Yeah.
And his personal struggles set against what was a pretty turbulent time, they really fueled this relentless quest for knowledge that, well, it fundamentally changed how we see the world.
And if you think about the bigger picture, the 17th century, old certainties were just collapsing.
Right, the Civil War.
The Civil Wars were part of it, yeah, but intellectually, too. Traditional ways of knowing were being challenged everywhere. People were questioning things that have been accepted for centuries.
So in that kind of chaos.
Exactly. In that environment, you're kind of at a crossroads, aren't you? Do you cling tight to what's familiar, or do you maybe embrace the discomfort of questioning everything? Boyle.
Well, he clearly chose that second path.
Yeah.
The questioning path.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We want to explore how Boyle took those early hardships and the intense intellectual debates swirling around him and actually turned them into this lasting legacy that still shapes modern science. We'll trace some key moments, explore his big ideas, and really try to get a handle on the power of, well, curiosity and resilience.
Sounds good. Okay, so let's unpack those early years a bit more. We've got this picture of privilege, son of an earl, castles, the whole thing.
Right.
But then there's this stark contrast with losing his mother, his own precarious health.
It is a striking juxtaposition. And it raises a really interesting question, doesn't it? How do you navigate that? Such privilege alongside such personal fragility.
Yeah.
It seems for Boyle, this might have fostered a deep awareness of just how, well, delicate life could be. His early interest in remedies, how the body worked. It wasn't just academic curiosity.
You think it was more personal?
You could really see it as a very personal quest to understand, maybe find some security, some control in a world that often felt pretty unpredictable.
It's almost like that early brush with mortality sharpened his focus on the physical world, maybe.
Could be.
Like if the old ideas about health and nature weren't really cutting it, maybe there was a more reliable way to find answers through, direct observation.
And you mentioned the historical context earlier, the Civil Wars, traditional knowledge crumbling.
Yeah, it must have felt like the ground was shaking underfoot.
Precisely. Imagine living through that. Established authorities, long-held beliefs, all being challenged from multiple angles.
What would you do?
Well, would your instinct be to just cling to what you knew? Or could that very instability, that chaos, actually create an opening for completely new ways of thinking?
Wow.
For Boyle, and actually for many others at that time, that sense of flux became a real catalyst. The old systems just weren't providing all the answers anymore.
Which led to more openness.
Yeah, a greater openness to exploring, alternative explorations, different methods.
So from this background, personal struggles, wider uncertainty, we see Boyle's intellectual awakening kick off.
Oh.
Our source mentions Galileo, Bacon, their writings, his travels in Europe. Sounds like a real turning point.
Oh, absolutely pivotal. These thinkers, they were championing a whole new way of understanding the world.
How so?
Through direct observation and what we call inductive reasoning. Basically drawing general conclusions from specific things you see and test.
Instead of just relying on old books.
Exactly. Instead of just accepting what ancient authorities said, they emphasize learning through hands-on experience, through careful experimentation. Boyle's travels exposed him directly to these, frankly, exciting new ideas.
And they obviously struck a chord.
They clearly resonated deeply with his own inclinations.
And then he finds himself at Eton and Oxford, which you mentioned were becoming quite vibrant intellectually.
Yeah, not just him in isolation. There was a real shift happening.
What kind of shift?
Well, places like Eton and Oxford were becoming sort of hotbeds of intellectual ferment. There was this growing emphasis on evidence, on reason,
Hmm.
as the main tools for understanding the world.
So he found his people, so to speak.
Exactly. Boyle found himself in a community of minds eager to question the established order. That kind of environment where new ideas were being actively debated, explored,
Hmm.
it was the perfect breeding ground for his own groundbreaking ideas to really take hold.
And groundbreaking feels like the right word, especially his insistence on empirical evidence, reproducible results. It sounds so basic to us now, but back then, that was a real departure, wasn't it? Especially compared to, say, alchemy.
Oh, completely. You have to appreciate the intellectual courage it took to move away from those really long-standing beliefs. Alchemy, with its kind of secret formulas, symbolic language, it had been hugely influential for centuries.
So what did Boyle propose instead?
Boyle essentially argued for a more transparent, verifiable approach. He was basically saying, show me the evidence, and hey, can someone else follow my steps and get the same result?
That sounds revolutionary.
It was this demand for openness, for a systematic, honest way of investigating nature. It was truly revolutionary. He wasn't just disagreeing with specific theories. He was challenging the entire method of how you even gain knowledge, how you validated it.
It's like he was saying, let's stop with the secret handshakes and build knowledge on a foundation everyone can actually see and test.
Precisely.
And this leads us nicely to one of his most famous contributions. The air pump, developed with Robert Hooke, right?
Yes. His assistant, Robert Hooke, a brilliant experimentalist in his own right.
And this air pump, it sounds like it really opened up a whole new area of science.
It was utterly transformative. The air pump wasn't just, a clever gadget. It was a tool that let them probe the invisible world in a systematic way for the first time.
The invisible world of air.
Exactly. Before Boyle, the nature of air was largely just philosophical speculation.
Yeah.
Is it empty? Is it one of the elements?
Right.
The air pump allowed them to carefully control air pressure and then just observe the effects. They could create near vacuums, reintroduce air.
And what did they find?
They demonstrated that air wasn't just empty space. It was a dynamic substance, essential for things like breathing, for carrying sound. Think about it. Before Boyle, air was just sort of there.
Mm-hmm.
His experiments were among the first to treat it as a thing with measurable properties. That's a crucial step, moving from philosophy to quantifiable science.
And the way they did these experiments sounds just as important as the pump itself. You mentioned he recorded failures too.
Yes, and that's such a crucial insight. In a time when scientific accounts often just highlighted the successes, presented a neat story,
Right, make yourself look good.
Boyle's dedication to documenting failures was genuinely pioneering. He recognized that even when an experiment didn't go as planned, the results could still provide incredibly valuable information. They could help refine future work.
So it wasn't about being wrong, it was about learning.
Exactly. This meticulousness, this transparency, it was vital for building a reliable body of scientific knowledge. It really underscores his belief in the process of science, not just the final shiny result.
And out of all this careful work came Boyle's law.
That's right.
The inverse relationship between pressure and volume of a gas. It's like high school physics now, but...
But back then, it was a direct result of that rigorous observation and logical reasoning. It wasn't just a lucky guess.
No.
It was a clear demonstration of a predictable, quantifiable relationship in nature, uncovered through systematic experiment. A powerful validation of his whole empirical method.
Okay, so he's making these new discoveries, developing new methods, but he wasn't just adding knowledge, was he? He was also actively challenging the old guard.
Oh, definitely. He went right after the established scientific views of his time. Aristotle's 4 elements: earth, air, fire, water.
The absolute basics for centuries.
And Paracelsus's 3 principles: salt, sulfur, mercury. These are the foundations.
And Boyle just said, nope.
Well, his book, The Skeptical Chemist, was basically a direct assault on those long-held ideas. He proposed something different, what we call the corpuscular view of matter.
Corpuscular, like particles.
Essentially, yeah. He suggested that all substances are made up of tiny, indivisible particles. Think of them like little building blocks.
Like Lego bricks.
Kind of. And these particles could rearrange themselves to form different materials. This was a radical departure from elements and principles, and really a significant step toward modern atomic theory, towards chemistry as we know it.
Wow. Okay, I can just imagine the reaction from the established scholars, people who'd built their entire careers on Aristotle.
Oh, there was strong resistance. Absolutely. There was definite pushback.
Understandably, I guess.
Sure, people who had spent their lives working within that existing framework, they're often pretty reluctant to abandon it. Boyle faced criticism, skepticism.
But he stuck to his guns.
His conviction, rooted in his experimental findings, was incredibly strong. He just firmly believed that scientific truth had to be earned, through rigorous testing, through evidence, not just accepted because some ancient Greek guy said so.
And his insistence on publishing results, on letting others replicate experiments, that seems crucial to building this new science he envisioned.
Absolutely fundamental.
Hmm.
Boyle understood that for science to truly advance, people needed to be able to examine your work, verify it, build upon it.
No more secrets.
Exactly.
Mhm.
By arguing for open communication, for the importance of replication, he really laid the groundwork for a more collaborative, self-correcting scientific community. That principle of shared knowledge, still a cornerstone today.
And all this work, these ideas, they eventually led to him being a founding member of the Royal Society. Right?
Yes, a hugely significant development.
Why was the Royal Society so important?
Well, it provided a formal platform, a
Mm.
place for scientists to actually come together, share ideas, do collaborative experiments, and crucially, publish their findings in a way that others could review and scrutinize.
So it institutionalized his ideas about openness.
In many ways, yes. Boyle's involvement was instrumental in embedding those principles, empirical investigation, open communication as the core values of this new scientific community. It fostered an environment where rigorous inquiry, critical evaluation of evidence,
Hmm.
that became central.
So even if Boyle himself didn't discover, say, gravity like Newton or isolate oxygen like Priestley,
Right.
it sounds like his methods, his whole philosophy of how to do science really cleared the path for them. He built the road they walked on, in a way.
And that's a great way to put it. Boyle essentially provided the essential toolkit, maybe,
Yeah.
and the underlying philosophical framework for future science.
Hmm.
His insistence on careful observation, meticulous experiments, transparent communication, it created this fertile intellectual ground where the next generations could build. He fundamentally shifted the focus from just thinking about stuff, from abstract philosophy to actually doing stuff, hands-on investigation.
Yeah.
That laid the methodological foundations for so much that followed.
So the real takeaway here, Robert Boyle's life, it's just this powerful illustration, isn't it? How relentless curiosity plus the courage to question deeply ingrained assumptions, how that can take personal hardship, big intellectual fights, and actually transform them into a genuine scientific revolution.
That sums it up perfectly. Boyle's story is such a powerful reminder that progress often comes from being willing to challenge the status quo, and to just keep going even when things get tough. His life really embodies that spirit of scientific inquiry, that basic drive to question, to experiment, and to share what you find openly, even when it ruffles feathers.
And it really makes you think, doesn't it? Looking at our own lives, maybe. What established ideas are we just taking for granted? What personal boundaries might we need to push in our own search for understanding? And maybe even more importantly, what setbacks, what failures could we reframe as opportunities, like Boyle did with those failed experiments?
That's a really important question for all of us, I think. Boyle's journey, it wasn't smooth. It wasn't just one success after another.
No.
It was marked by challenges, by arguments, by having to constantly defend his ideas with evidence. But it was precisely by navigating those obstacles that he made his most profound contributions, that resilience, that commitment.
Yeah.
It's a powerful lesson when we face our own hurdles.
So let Robert Boyle's legacy be a bit of an inspiration, maybe. Whatever sparks your curiosity, whatever you're grappling with, dare to question, dare to experiment, even in small ways. Share what you figure out.
Yeah.
Your own potential great breakthrough, whatever that means for you, it could very well be waiting right there on the other side of your own challenges, fueled by your own curiosity and courage.
The pursuit of understanding. It's a continuous journey, isn't it? Built on the work of those who came before. By embracing that spirit of inquiry, that willingness to explore the unknown, well, you become part of that ongoing legacy. So maybe the question is, what's the next compelling question you'll choose to explore?